At 6 p.m. on Friday here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Hwang Ji-hye. And these are the top stories we're following at this hour. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un hails the recent inter-Korean deal, saying it's paved the way for reconciliation and trust between the two sides. The South Korean government proposes working-level talks with North Korea next month to discuss holding reunions for families separated by the Korean War. The National Assembly canceled its full session Friday as lawmakers clash over a budget item. In a sign of improving inter-Korean relations, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un hailed the recent deal between the two sides. Kim also reportedly removed a number of officials from the regime's top military commission, a move that could be linked to Pyongyang's recent landmine attack in the DMZ. Our Connie Kim starts us off.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has dismissed a number of his military officials and reshuffled his military aides. The Korea Central News Agency reported Friday that the firing of its party officials occurred at an expanded meeting of the Central Military Commission of the North's ruling Workers' Party of Korea. It did not disclose the reasons for the dismissals, but it has prompted speculation that it may be related to the August 4th landmine explosion that injured 2 South Korean soldiers near the Demilitarized Zone. For the first time since the high-level talks, the North Korean leader hailed the inter-Korean agreement, calling it a landmark occasion that diffused military tensions and paved the way for improved bilateral ties. Kim also praised the military's muscle and said it was the North's nuclear deterrent force for self-defense that helped achieve peace on the Korean peninsula. Kim also ordered swift restoration take place in Dasan to deal with flood damage by the 70th anniversary of the founding of the North's ruling Workers' Party in October. The flood killed 40 people, damaging hospitals and schools in Dasan, one of North Korea's economic development zones. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
South Korea and the United States on Friday conducted the integrated firepower exercise in Pocheon, Gyeonggi-do province near the border with North Korea. This year was the largest drill to be held since they began in 1977. Over 2,000 troops from 47 units, along with hundreds of heavy artillery and military vehicles, were mobilized for the exercise. It's conducted under the scenarios of a local attack and all-out aggression by North Korea. President Park Geunhye was among the 12,000 in attendance to witness the drill, which also showcased some of South Korea's newest high-tech weaponry like the K-2 tank as well as F-15 and 16 fighter jets. President Park Geunhye and Chinese President Xi Jinping are being urged to discuss the reunification of the two Koreas when they meet in Beijing next week for summit talks. In an article posted on the Project Syndicate website on Thursday, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Christopher Hill claimed North Korea is on the brink of collapse. He said South Korea and China should discuss the aftermath of the South's potential absorption of the North once it becomes unable to function. Hill, the former chief U.S. nuclear negotiator with North Korea, criticized Kim Jong-un, calling him a worse leader than his father and grandfather. Referring to North Korea's latest military standoff with South Korea, Hill said Kim Jong-un created a crisis for no apparent reason and gained little from it. Following the landmark agreement between the two Koreas, South Korea has offered to hold working-level talks with the North next month to discuss their planned round of reunions for war-separated families. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
The Unification Ministry says the South Korean Red Cross proposed holding a meeting to discuss the reunions on September 7th on the South Korean side of the border village of Panmunjom. They're expected to discuss details, including the date and location of the reunions if they were to take place. The proposal follows a landmark inter-Korean agreement earlier this week that includes holding a set of family reunions in time for Chuseok, or the Korean Thanksgiving holiday that falls at the end of next month. But even if talks go ahead as planned, the Korean Red Cross says the actual reunion may occur in mid-October instead, since sorting out the list of more than 66,000 separated family members presumed to be alive will take some time. Once the location and time are finalized, a committee of 7 will work on the selection process. The committee will devise a list of the selected participants through a draw. The committee, however, plans to shorten the list after considering health conditions and other factors that may inhibit movement. A total of 19 such reunions have taken place since August 2000. The last one was held in February last year. The separated family members who would meet haven't seen each other for nearly 70 years since the Korean War in the early 1950s ripped them apart. Kim Jong-un, Arirang News.
Korea's rival parties are involved in another budget standoff. A last-minute dispute over a multi-million-dollar budget item has resulted in the cancellation of a full assembly session originally scheduled for this Friday. Our Park Geunhye has more.
Friday's pre-scheduled full assembly to approve the government's budget settlement for last year and vote on a Supreme Court justice nominee was cancelled after rival parties locked horns over a government budget issue. Until this morning, the ruling Saenuri party had been urging swift passage of bills and motions pending at the assembly.
To successfully conclude the August Assembly session, the approval of Supreme Court Justice nominee Lee Gi-taek, the budget settlement for 2014, as well as passage of economic-related bills should be voted on Friday.
However, the plenary session scheduled at 10 a.m. was called off as the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy said it would boycott the session unless a subcommittee is formed to scrutinize a multi-million-dollar item in the budget called Special Activities. The NPAD took issue with details remaining classified surrounding the allocation of over $700 million annually for the special activities and called for the expenses to be overhauled to minimize tax waste.
The amount of budget allocated to the National Assembly under the item of special activities is less than $7.6 million, but we need to disclose those expenses, as well as the $700 million allocated to other government agencies in the item.
This classified budget item has emerged as a very contentious issue during the deliberation process at the Assembly's Budget Committee meeting this week. The ruling Saenuri party says more than half of the funds go to the nation's intelligence agency and should remain classified. But the opposition party says now is the time to overhaul the spending of the secretive budget, as earlier this year, lawmakers from both parties were found to have used funds from the special activities for personal use. After the full assembly was called off, both parties tried to hold negotiations to resolve the standoff and to reschedule the plenary session, but failed to reach an agreement. However, the possibility of scheduling another plenary session for next Monday still remains, as the two rival parties may continue negotiations over the weekend. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
President Park Geunhye says in an era of open markets and aging society, Korea should seek opportunities in the rapidly changing agricultural environment. At the opening of a farming exhibition titled the 2015 Farm Show in Seoul, she said the global food industry has outgrown the IT and auto industries combined, and that advanced nations are investing more into the agricultural sector. Vowing government support, President Park talked about bringing together IT, biotechnology, and food processing technologies to increase productivity and marketability and to attract more young Koreans to the agricultural sector. In order to stimulate the country's agricultural economy, the president suggested merging the sector with areas of food processing, distribution, sales, and tourism to create added value. In the aftermath of Seoul's recent deal to defuse tensions with Pyongyang, President Park's approval rating jumped by the biggest margin this year to a record 49%. Gallup Korea says 49% of some 1,000 South Koreans spoke positively about how the president is running the country, compared to 44% that gave a negative response. The amount of positive responses increased 15 percentage points from the previous week, and it's the first time since November of last year that positive assessments outnumbered negative ones. Nearly 4 out of 10 people surveyed cited President Park's North Korea and security policies as their reason for supporting her, while 65% of respondents said Seoul did a good job in its negotiations with Pyongyang. Japan launched a website on Friday with one-sided historical records that lay claim over Korea's Dokdo Island. Eriko Yamatani, the Japanese minister in charge of territorial affairs, said the site includes around 200 pieces of official documents and newspaper articles on Dokdo. However, the archive only dates back to the period between 1905 and 1960s when Japan forcibly occupied the island. Yamatani claimed that the site does not speak on behalf of the Japanese government and is merely providing information to the public. Japan's false claims over Dokdo Island remains a major point of contention between Korea and Japan. Korea's top automaker Hyundai Motor Group is losing ground in the lucrative Chinese auto market due to competition from local brands. The Korean firm is not the only automaker suffering either. Shin Se-min reports.
Despite the steep decline in growth in China's local economy, its local automakers are all smiles, enjoying robust sales. Chinese local automakers have put Korea's top auto brand, Hyundai Motor Group, to the test. Looking at the figures, Chinese manufacturer Chang'an Automobile sold 446,000 units, experiencing over 53% growth in the first 7 months of this year compared to last year. The country's largest SUV maker, Great Wall Motors, posted on-year growth of 31%, selling over 390,000 units in the same period. That's a 16% hike on-year for Chang'an and 8% for Great Wall Motors in the month of July. In contrast, Korea's Hyundai Motors saw sales drop nearly 11% in the January to July period, while its sister company, Kia Motors, saw sales crimped by over 6% on-year. The firms took up a total of 7.5% of China's market share, below the 10% mark it recorded in May. Korean automakers aren't the only companies taking a hit in the Chinese market. Last month, Volkswagen Group saw sales nosedive by nearly 30% on-year, and General Motors also shed 24%. Industry officials say it all boils down to cheaper prices. With Chinese automakers turning out more affordable vehicles at less than half the price of its foreign competitors, experts say it's becoming much more difficult to win over local drivers as many look for ways to cut spending in the slowing economy. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Chinese online shoppers can now have their items bought from Korea to be shipped by sea. Previously, the only option was by air, but the Korean Customs Service said on Friday that Qingdao Customs will now be able to receive and process items from Korea bought online. Although shipping time will take a day longer than by air, the cost will be almost halved. Customs inspections will also only involve X-ray scans for faster processing. In the first half of this year, almost 50% of all online revenue made from abroad was from China. But exports have been in decline over the last couple of years, and this new shipping option will be welcome news to Korean industries. The panic may be over in the world's stock markets as China's shares ended on a rising streak continuing from Thursday. Along with a more than higher than expected growth rate in the U.S., there are hopes the world economy will be on a more stabilizing path soon. Kwon So-ah has the details.
What started as a Black Monday in China sent shockwaves in stock markets across the globe, now ended on a much brighter note. China's main Shanghai Composite Index managed a second consecutive rise after falling earlier this week to an 8-year low in a single day and below the 3,000 mark, a level considered as psychologically healthy for the country's economy. Stabilization is attributed to the central bank's rate cut on Tuesday and government intervention in the local bourse Thursday, giving hope the China risk will die down.
The Chinese economy is growing at a reasonable pace. We think that in the second half of the year, achieving an annual economic increase of 7% will not be a problem.
An official of China's central bank said global stocks volatility was sparked by worries over the likeliness of a key interest rate hike in the U.S., adding the U.S. central bank should postpone the race for emerging countries to prepare. But chances of a hike may have increased as the U.S. economy appears to be getting back on track. Its GDP estimate for the second quarter jumped almost 1.5 percentage points to 3.7%. It came as a welcome surprise too, exceeding earlier predictions by the government and economists. The spike came on the back of an increase in consumer spending, which accounts for more than 2/3 of economic activity in the U.S., and a rise in government spending and exports. A senior Fed official said it's time to talk about normalization. She added there was no need to overreact to the recent volatility stemming from China's market rout. 권소아, 아리랑 뉴스.
That brings us to the end of our newscast. More updates coming up at 10 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned and goodbye for now.